On today's show, how are the Boston Celtics so good and dominated in Game 2 in Joel Embiid's return? Talk about that and more on today's Locked On NBA. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You are Locked On to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast. Thanks for being part of the show, making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On NBA is free wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube where you can watch Pat the Designer with a substitute camera today. Filling in. Joining me always on a Thursday, host of Locked On Bulls. What you got for me, Pat the Designer?
Who'd ever thought we'd see the day where you'd have better video quality than me? Just saying.
It has been because I've been recording it. But
yeah.
On today's show, what did Boston do well in their Game 2 win? Why did Philly struggle? Joel Embiid, James Harden, struggle bus. They didn't even drive the bus. They were sitting. They didn't even have tickets. They were on the
Good job. Bus. Good job there, Nick.
And then we'll play Count It Up with the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including Dillon Brooks. Under no circumstances, Pat. Under no circumstances will Dillon Brooks return. We'll talk about that later in the show. But let's start here. The Boston Celtics win 121, which is a normal NBA score in 2023, to 87, a non-normal NBA score in 2023. The Boston Celtics got 25 points from Jaylen Brown. Great for him. 23 points off the bench from the president, Malcolm Brogdon. 7 points from Jayson Tatum. 1 of 7 from hit one shot, Pat. He hit one shot in this game, and they won. They won every single quarter. They won points in the paint. They won second chance points. They won bench points 54-26 in this game. They won the rebounding battle. They had double the assists of the Sixers. And their biggest lead was 36 points at one point. What did Boston do well? Or just how did Boston do so well in a game like this, especially in that third quarter where they took off?
Well, I mean, you saw the defense ratchet up. That's really what it came down to. In that third quarter, right, the defense of Boston closing out on shots well. 76 was only shooting 6 for 30, I believe, from the 3-point line as a whole. And I thought they did a really good job adjusting to James Harden. James Harden was a huge part of this. He was the 76ers offense in game 1. Yeah. In game 2, you really didn't see much of him. And they got into him very early and changed the game. Joel Embiid trying to work his way back into this. I think this is a really good bounce back game by Boston, but I do think that there's a little bit of weight on the fact that they were trying to work Embiid back into this and still trying to keep kind of the other guys involved in the game. But the game changes so much when you have to work back in a guy like Joel Embiid and it seemed like, right, like you could tell that he had 13 days off. That's how it felt to me as this game went through. And I thought Boston just took advantage of it. Jaylen Brown again, showing up in the hugest moments in the playoffs like he always does. A little bit concerning for me on Tatum, though. I will say that with the Boston Celtics because of what we saw.
36-point lead. I'm good. I'm
good with how the game goes as a whole, right? I really am. Like I'm not tripping. And at a certain point, Tatum was just like, y'all got it. But the fact that he wasn't able to get himself going is very similar to what we saw last season. I know the injury ended up being the reason last season that we're putting under why he started having the slump. But let's hope that we're not seeing that come back into this.
Tatum played 19 minutes. Again, he was 1 of 7 from the field. He had some foul trouble. He had 4 fouls, and so there was some foul stuff. In the third quarter, though, I thought Dave Dufour from The Athletic on Twitter had a good point that his thing that he always keeps bringing up is don't foul your own players out. Like, if you get a 4th foul, don't foul out your own player and play them less minutes overall than they would play if, like maybe they don't get that other foul. Like, you have to think about that and trust some of those players. Joe Mazulla trusted Jayson Tatum in that third quarter, and that's when the Celtics really made their big run. Tatum only played 19 minutes, 7 points. Again, like we said, plus 24. He had the biggest plus minus of anybody in the Celtics because that's when they made their big run in the third quarter when he was still in there. And so one thing that I thought early on, and I wrote this down about the Sixers in the first half can't figure out their offensive flow at all. Every first action is stopped by the Celtics. And then the recovery from the Sixers wasn't great. We'll talk about why the Sixers struggled so much later. But I thought Boston's defense was just really locked in this game. They were stopping stuff early. They were doubling Joel Embiid quickly. Like everything, it felt like they were so much faster than the Sixers in so many different ways. You had Embiid hobbled by the injury. He's just coming back for the first time in 13 days. Harden had a huge offensive load in game one. You could tell that he wasn't as quick. Tyrese Maxey was quick, but quick in the wrong ways on that, where he's like flying too far the other way and all that stuff. And the Celtics were just able to keep up with everybody and you saw one really good ball movement play from the Sixers, like in the third quarter where they got that Tobias Harris 3. It was one of their 6 threes that they made. And outside of that, there was just not really good process from the Sixers. And I think you got to give the Celtics a lot of credit for that because they were just stopping actions quickly. They were all interconnected. They could use their guys. They could use every single one of their guys because Joel Embiid wasn't killing them. Like even like points in the paint. You look at the points in the paint. Celtics had more, and Sixers only had 34. And so you look at that, like Joel Embiid's not killing you in the paint. And so, hey, we can just go ahead and play all of our guys. We're not worried about anybody like leaving the game. The Celtics team is just so well put together. There's so many guys that do so much well in this team. And I thought one really sneaky thing the Celtics did, maybe not sneaky, it was pretty overt. And Grant Williams picking up Joel Embiid like on the perimeter. So we have our one stout guy who's got 6 fouls, and we're going to throw him out there instead of like sacrificing Al Horford or Robert Williams to go follow Joel Embiid around the perimeter. They said, okay, if Joel Embiid is going to stand around the free throw line, which he's been doing all season, won an MVP because of how great he's been taking these shots. But if he's going to do that, then we're going to send Grant Williams to just like stick with him out there. And right as soon as Grant Williams came to the game, Joel Embiid had that flop on him, fell down and all that stuff. And but I thought Grant Williams did a decent job, at least just being big and physical. And I thought that was an interesting wrinkle from the Celtics.
I think you have to give kudos to every one of the Boston Celtics that got an opportunity in this game, right? I mean, listen, you got Brogdon with 24 minutes. Malcolm Brogdon could be talked about as probably one of the most important players to this Celtics run, hopefully back to the NBA Finals again, because of what he can do on nights like tonight, right? Like you didn't even realize how little Jayson Tatum did because of how much Malcolm Brogdon was able to step up and be that number 2 piece. Last season, we didn't see that number 2 piece that when Jaylen Brown was able to have a night like tonight where he's 25 points on 9 and 17 shooting. Okay, who's the other guy that's going to step up with him? Tonight, you saw Malcolm Brogdon, 7 for 15, 6 for 10 from the three-point line. He was knocking down trade ball, knocked down the same amount of threes as the Sixers team as a whole. Yeesh. So take that with you if you want to. Yeah, I mean, and I thought that he was really a good focal point, but it didn't stop with him. The other guys on this Celtics team just did everything so right. Marcus Smart, Grant Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, like we said, Derek White, like there's just so many guys that are on this team that contribute in smaller ways. But listen, 10 points here, 15 points there. That's how you add up to that 121. At the end of the day, it was too much for the Sixers to handle. And when you look at the Sixers other guys, there just wasn't the same production that we saw out there, right? Like Embiid had 15, but then Tobias with 16, Maxey 13, Harden 12, and that's it. That's just scoring for the Sixers just about. And you kind of saw it's the reason that led you here. I think they had a little bit of a regression with how much they were just like, all right, James, do what you do. And now they needed to all step up in this moment, and they didn't.
Yeah, the Sixers guys wanted to feed off of somebody. Like, hey, take the attention away from some of us, and it just never materialized because Embiid only took 9 shots. Some of that was because of the doubling, which you'd think that they would take advantage, but then the Celtics were able to recover so quickly off of that it just didn't really matter. Great quotes after the game. Joe Mazulla was asked if the Celtics were angry and frustrated coming into this game after losing game 1. Joe Mazulla said yes. He was asked how so. He said they were angry, frustrated. How were they the last 48 hours for the Celtics? Joe Mazulla, angry, pissed. Did you like that? Yes. Joe Mazulla loved that this team was angry and pissed coming into this game. Said, hey, we want to bounce back. We believe that we should have won that game 1 and should have won game 1 without Joel Embiid. And they responded really well in this game. Coming up, let's talk about the Sixers side of things. Why did Joel Embiid struggle so much? Why did Harden struggle so much? We'll talk about that. And do they have hope in the next couple of games? We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about eBay Motors. Just like the right fit for your NBA team, you need to have the right wings, the right guards. The Celtics fit so well all together. A bunch of guys that can do stuff. You want your car parts to fit right just like that. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors with eBay Guaranteed Fit. You can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage. Look for the green check to know that that part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop at eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, Pat. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA. We have a show for every single Locked On or every single NBA team. So if you're interested in the Celtics, interested in the Sixers, we have a 5-day-a-week show for them. Go check out those shows. On tomorrow's Locked On NBA show, Wes Goldberg, Adam Morrows will be with you talking about Warriors and Lakers game 2. How are the Warriors going to respond? So come back tomorrow and listen to the show on that. Let's get into the Sixers side of things. Joel Embiid returns for the first time in 13 days. He missed game 4 against the Nets. He missed game 1 against the Celtics. He now returns. He only plays 26 minutes. He has 15 points, 5 blocks, only 3 rebounds in this game. Only takes 9 shots in this one. He's a minus 23, which is the worst on the entire Sixers team. Why did Joel Embiid struggle so much in his return?
Cleared don't mean healthy. Joel Embiid was cleared to play. That means he can't injure himself any more than he's already hurt. You could tell tonight that he's slow to get himself back into the process, still dealing with the effects of trying to work himself back into that process, right? You could tell that the injury is still lingering. He did light work this morning in the practice facility during shoot around. He's not healthy right now. And but listen, he's on the court. He's trying to go. Nobody's going to sit here and not still give him the same flack that they would if he was 100% healthy. It doesn't change anything. But let's come into this with the understanding. Joel Embiid isn't ready to go, and he's just out there because he's just been voted MVP. He knows that his team absolutely needs him to win these games because he knew that James Harden had an out-of-body experience in game 1. And when guys come back down to earth, who's going to be that guy that steps up? At a minimum, Joel Embiid can go out there. He can be the big body. He can be a defensive anchor. He can be the guy that's out there, right, making a few shots here and there. But he's still trying to work his way back into this. Somebody else has to step up. I think they had an opportunity tonight. I like that they went to Tobias like they did, but maybe you should have went to Tobias a little bit more. But by the time that they were that they might have thought about making that decision, the game was over.
Yeah, you could tell Joel Embiid, he was just slow and felt like he was plotting. And one of the things I think that's made Joel Embiid so good this season is his touch. Like he has that, kind of fade away, not really a Dirk shot because he doesn't really throw up one knee. He throws up like both knees when he fades away. He fades away and has that touch shot, like the turnaround jumper. He's got these, like he just really touched things. And when you're injured, like it's hard to try and still do that same kind of stuff, have that same kind of touch when you're struggling like that. And especially if your feet and your legs aren't, the same underneath you, you have to have that balance, that footwork, all that stuff has to work together. And I could just see Joel Embiid struggling in that. He was great at the rim, 5 blocks. I mean, he was killing it at the rim, but anywhere else, like he couldn't close out. He couldn't rotate. You could just see that injury was really holding him back. He was not the same Joel Embiid that we've seen this season. If you are maybe a casual fan and you're like, this guy won MVP. You're watching this game, said really over the guy I just saw drop 39 against the Suns the other night. Like this is not the same Joel Embiid that we've seen all season, right? He's struggling. He's injured. And I mean, they're going to have to change their game plan because you can't just play, all right, Joel Embiid post up and everybody else just stand around and try and figure out what to do because I don't know that it'll work if he's in this condition going forward.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem, though, right? Like, this hasn't been the Sixers all season. We've talked about the Sixers team being Joel Embiid, getting the ball from James Harden, sometimes kicking it out to Tyrese Maxey, knocking down a shot. You're talking about 3 guys. Guess what? Tyrese Maxey didn't show up tonight, 6 for 14, 13 points. James Harden didn't show up tonight, 2 for 14 with 12 points. And Joel Embiid's hurt. He took 9 shots. This is the team that we've talked about all season. This is why I've been saying every time we have a Philly game on Wednesday, You gotta stop just letting Tobias Harris be a spot up shooter in the corner. He's got to feel involved.
$40 million spot up shooter in the corner.
That's all he does. And I think even tonight, right? Like you see those moments like you saw tonight where when they went to him, he was able to get to the bucket. He was able to finish strong. But you haven't asked him to do that all season. Now you're just expecting him to turn it on. That's not how it works.
Yeah, they needed something different in it, and you could tell Harden too. Like, we can talk about Harden. He didn't have it because he gave everything in game one. He didn't have the same kind of lift. They threw Jaylen Brown on him sometimes. Marcus Smart's on him. Like they have options to throw. You can't just like wear down the Celtics the way that he's worn down defenders in the past because they can throw multiple bodies at you just over and over. I mean, Tatum only played 19 minutes. They could have thrown Tatum at him a little bit more if they wanted to at a certain point. And just that having that size on Harden with Jaylen Brown had him struggling, and like most of his jumpers, I felt like were just mid-range. Like, hey, I kind of got to a spot, and I'm going to pull up, and I'm not super comfortable with this, but this is where I am at this point in the game. And so, Sixers offense just struggled in pretty much every facet. Like, made 19 of 23 free throws. Like, I guess that's the only area they didn't really struggle.
Well, you had a full-on switch, right? Like, I mean, last game, right? Like James Harden had a Houston James Harden type of performance, a very similar performance to what Joel Embiid has done for the Sixers most of this season. Tonight, you asked the Sixers to play as a team. We haven't asked the Sixers to do that much this season. We haven't asked for the other guys to step up. Who we asking for? Melton? We asked for Melton to step up.
Melton airballed the 3 in the corner on a fast break in the third quarter, and I was like, whoo, if that doesn't tell the whole story of the Sixers today, is just like,
I mean,
we created a really good shot and a complete airball by a role player.
Yeah, I mean, like, but again, these guys haven't been put in this situation a ton. Now all of a sudden you're asking them to do this. That's not the position you want to put them in. And again, even looking at Harden's game, right? Harden in game one, the reason we were all so excited about it, we were like, this is a great game. I can't believe he had it, because that was Houston Harden.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that Harden in 4 years.
So a couple times with the Nets, I feel like we saw, but not often.
Not 45-point Harden. Did he have a 40+ game in Brooklyn? Maybe I don't remember it.
That was his playoff career high, I'm pretty sure. So.
Yeah, we didn't see that. We haven't seen that Harden since Houston. And it was the James Harden that, hey, it doesn't matter that you're standing in front of me. I'm going to knock down this shot. It doesn't matter that you're standing in front of me. I'm going to be heavy enough to go through you and make the lay with the and one. It doesn't matter that
heavy enough like that.
No, Harden's a big
don't have
boy.
to say heavy enough.
Hey, listen.
Hey,
listen. The one thing about James Harden that I felt like people always underestimate
is that he's not weighed down by ones.
Bro, like, listen, he is a large man out here. You know what I'm saying? But I just felt like, right, like, you couldn't come into game 2 expecting him to replicate a performance we haven't seen in 4 years.
Yeah, it wasn't going to happen, but it just didn't happen for both of the Sixers stars. And then nobody else picked up the slack. Like you mentioned, this is Maxi's time to, like, all right, take over.
And so, yeah.
13 points all in the first half. He had a little foul trouble where he got taken out early, but I thought he was a good spark for them early. And then just didn't do anything in the third quarter. And that's where, when you're a young player, it's hard to figure out, okay, where's my spot? And where do I just take over? Where we've seen some guys in the past, like young guys, Kobe, if you think about him, like he was like, it's my time, no matter what. Like he had that confidence. And it's hard to have that kind of, like, it's just very few players have that.
Yeah.
I'm going to insert myself and I'm going to be the guy here. One more thing I want to talk about this game. In the middle of the first quarter, I started noticing something on the screen, and it was flying back and forth. And there's a drone flying in the middle of the court in the shot. So, like, I'm looking through a drone to see a player take a shot, and then they went to the drone shot where it's just like over the court. It's just a little bit closer of an angle instead of the broadcast angle. But it felt like instead of in 30 FPS or frames per second, it was in like 20 or 15 frames per second, where it just looked so strange to me. It looked the difference between my camera right now and Pat's camera right now is what it looked like.
That's literally what it was. That's literally what it was. What a great point. Oh my God. It's spot on. Dog, it was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And you could tell, right? Like that the drone was shooting in like drone 4K or whatever that was. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
It looked so bad. I remember they went to it and I was like, who's this camera guy that's like 25 feet in the air above the fans? Like, it was so I don't think I've seen it. It was like waving too, like you could see it like moving back and forth like this, like it wasn't.
It was like the air conditioning was blowing because it wasn't big, right? Like it was a normal size, like consumer size drone.
It's the NBA. I feel like that wasn't even the most expensive drone. I've seen drone shots that stand still. We can't get a National Geographic drone on this thing. Come on, dog. Like we can do better than this.
Like the wind from Joel Embiid running back and forth, like was making it move.
No, it's from Melton's airball.
Oh my gosh! So let us know in the comment section if you like the drone footage. If we're just being curmudgeons.
The NBA didn't like it. They didn't go back to it one time.
True. Yeah,
they
like,
went to Twitter and they were like, "That's it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do
it." 86 the drone. Coming up, let's talk about Dillon Brooks. Under no circumstances will he return to the Grizzlies. We'll talk about Kevin Durant in a video game. And more on coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about BetterHelp. Everybody has things in their life that you just need to talk about with somebody. You got something going on with your partner. You got something going on with a friend, with a family member. Oh man, family, always something to talk about with family. And you need somebody that's not going to have an agenda, that's not going to have this prior knowledge that you get to just spew everything on and talk through and walk through with somebody. And BetterHelp can help you with that. Therapy gives you the tools to find more balance in your life. That's what I found. It's just a perspective and somebody else that doesn't know you, doesn't know the people in your life, and doesn't have the agenda. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And this is important. You can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. That's something I know people are concerned about. Hey, what if I don't vibe with this person? What if I don't like the guy? What if I don't like the girl that I'm matched up with? You can switch, and they expect you to probably switch to find somebody that works for you. Find more balance with BetterHelp. Again, check it out. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, Pat. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA, being part of this show. Subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on the podcast. Appreciate everybody listening on the podcast right now. Find the Locked On NBA show for you. We have one covering every single NBA team 5 days a week throughout the offseason, too. But for now, it's time to play our favorite game every week.
Count it up, count it up, count it up, count it.
Count it up, where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. Let's start here. The Memphis Grizzlies, according to Shams Charania, have informed impending free agent Dillon. Actually, it's not even impending. It's pending because he is a free agent. This is not even pending free agent.
Not even pending.
The Grizzlies have informed free agent Dillon Brooks that he will not be brought back under any circumstances, league sources say. Now, DeMichael Cole, host of Locked On Grizzlies, retweeted this today. The agent of Dillon Brooks came out and said, quote, Shams, the leader of spreading false news and attacking players. Why any player in the league talks to this guy blows my mind. Hashtag weirdo.
Count it up.
Are you more on the side of the Sixers or more on the side of Dillon Brooks's agent here? Are the Grizzlies or Dillon Brooks's agent here?
Y'all saw my clip. What does he do well? What does he do well? Listen, I wish the best for him. I hope he don't play for my team. I hope he's a favorite in Dallas. Have fun with that, Nick. Kyrie,
he's coming
Dillon
to
Brooks.
I'm calling it. He's going to Dallas.
Yeah, of course he is, bro.
The Mavericks know this.
Listen, they've already been on the phone with him. Tampering is coming, so prepare for that as well. Listen, I'm on the side of the Grizzlies because I really think that the Grizzlies believe this. You poked a bear that puts you out of the playoffs.
Dillon Brooks is responsible for that. Dillon Brooks is the one that did that.
I don't think that it changes the eventual outcome of the series, but I think that you put pressure on your team to live up to your words, and you're not the guy that can stand up in that fight. That's the dude. You know who Dillon Brooks is? He the dude that's like in the background when a fight's getting ready to start and this is about to go down. He's like, I heard he said your mama. Who? What? You said my mama. And then like all of a sudden the punches start, and Dillon Brooks is nowhere to be. 10 points a game on 23% shooting in the playoffs. You shouldn't be talking. You shouldn't have a mouth to speak words with in the playoffs right now. What are we talking about? Why are we talking about Dillon Brooks for the third day in a row?
Shouldn't have a mouth to speak words with. Did you say shut up and defend? Bro, it's not shut up and dribble anymore. It's shut up and defend.
It's not even that, because it's the thing. Like it's really just know your play. Listen, I didn't come into Locked On and say, look, Nick, I think you're doing a terrible job with how you're running this network. And, I think we can run it better. And until you prove to me that you can get more subscribers than me, I think that I'm better than you. Like, who does that?
That's because I didn't have more subscribers than you.
Shut up. You went to the man at hey, Windy City Breeze, 18,000 a day.
They got 23 up. They got 23 on Locked On Maps.
Clap it up. But it's you went to the man that literally is the leading scorer in the NBA and got the record this season.
Oof. It's tough.
And you pissed that team off.
To answer your first question, what does he do well? We voted him second team all defense on our Locked On ballot.
You got to stop saying we. I did not put that vote. I didn't put that on.
He got 6 first team votes, 15 second place votes. So he got 27 total points. So he got in pretty comfortably.
And I asked the same question. Who has he shut down? Give me this great defensive effort that we all remember him having.
It's wild to me that the Grizzlies are just like, under no circumstances we'd be back. I think secretly, though, I think they won't say this. It may come out at some point. The Grizzlies are in a kind of a financial situation too. Like, It's easy now for them to be like, hey, let's move on from this guy, Dillon Brooks, that isn't really portraying our city super well. It isn't portraying our team super well and putting us in a good light, because he's a free agent. We're kind of we're like over the tax or over the salary cap next year already. We have 14 players under contract, not counting Dillon Brooks. We don't have our draft picks accounted for that yet. Like they already have the situation where they can get under the salary cap pretty easy. And they have to look out for Desmond Bane's restricted free agency coming up, for Xavier Tillman. There's another one that I can't think of off the top of my head. They've got some guys coming up that they need to pay. Tyus Jones was the other one to pay. And so moving on from Dillon Brooks now, it's like, hey, that makes financial sense for us. And it also helps because he was super embarrassing and we can just move on from him. Moving on from Dillon Brooks is us. Let's talk about Kevin Durant is now going to be a playable character in the new season of Call of Duty.
Count it up.
How big of a target is a 7-foot guy in a shooting game? Like, you're going to be sniping from the top, right? You're like, all right, hanging out. And all of a sudden, like, Kevin Durant's going to stand up. And like his head is gonna be above everybody else's. What do they got to do with KD?
I mean, I think he's got to have some kind of like special skill, right? Where there's like a mirror on the gun, and so you can see it as he just sticks his arm up and shoots like this. It's got to be that. Like, come on, dog. Like, remember Charles Barkley talking about Dirk Nowitzki having to go to the army? It's just like, hey, you not going to the army, dude. Like, you're too tall.
Larry Markkanen's there right now in Finland.
Hey, listen, I'm scared for Lowry next year in the NBA because I'm just like, Lowry was already jacked. What's boot camp Lowry going to be? They're just going to make him do leg day. Like, if Larry Markkinen comes back with calf muscles, the NBA is over.
Andre Drummond looks at him and goes, oh my God, is that the best rebounder in NBA history now? Kevin Durant and Call of Duty is going to be hilarious.
That's going to be great.
They got to make him not 7 feet though, right? They'll make him like a normal sized character.
Nope. You got to make him 6'11". Got to make him 6'11".
Easy,
the only way to do it.
Easy money sniper now means a different thing than he used to.
No cap though. He probably has he's probably a sniper with crazy range.
So he's just out there laying around. So his leg is going to be shown from like the other side of a building that he's laying down because he's
got his feet just kicked up.
The length of a building. Oh my gosh. Last one here. There's been an insane amount of nut shots and physicality in this playoffs. Dillon Brooks had a nut shot on LeBron. Harden, the nut shot against Royce O'Neal in round 1. Joel Embiid had the groin hit on Nick Claxton. That was a flagrant one. PJ Tucker hit Tatum in the nuts in game 1 with the turnaround and like karate chop. Then we also had some physicality. Draymond stomped on Sabonis. DeJounte Murray bumped into the ref after game 4, the Hawks Celtics. What's the blame for the amount of physicality and just blatant nut shots in the playoffs so far?
The lack of calls that lead up to them.
You're protesting for more calls. You want more reps, more reviews,
No,
more calls?
Not at all. I want more physicality, but you can't sit here and to me, the part that is hypocritical on the side of the NBA is that when these things happen, they're instantly like, oh, we're just going to throw you out. Right. But you're allowing these things to get to that point. You're allowing the physicality of these guys, and like they're not competitive, like they're not going to go back and forth, right? Like the part for me where should Draymond have stepped on Sabonis's chest? No. Should he have been tossed from that game? For sure. All right, we're good with it.
Interesting word.
Stomped, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean?
I do want to call it.
Step one, step two again. But here's the thing, right? There's literally a string of plays where Sabonis is pulling, doing all the stuff that Draymond normally does to Draymond, and there's no calls, and there's a ref sitting there looking at it just like, keep playing, stop complaining, keep it going, let's keep it going. So I think that for the nut shots, at least, flagrant one, if he's getting 2 nuts, flagrant 2. You know what I mean? 1 nut, flagrant 1, 2 nuts, flagrant 2.
So the only thing that matters is how precise the nut shot is.
You gotta get precise. You know what I mean? What he's saying, what was the movie where Adam Sandler was at Longest Yard? Was that when he was in jail? And he's like, I'm going for the left one next. You know what I mean? Like,
it's been an interesting trend here, and 3 of them by the Sixers, by the way. Embiid, Harden, and Tucker in that. So,
hey, ballsy topic for you, man.
Again, tomorrow, how will the Warriors respond in Game 2 versus the Lakers? Come back. Adam Mares and Wes Goldberg have you covered there, guys. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA.
Bye bye.
Boom.